Alrighty, folks, this was an interview I've been looking forward to doing since 2018. 2018, I'm in Taiwan. I'm in the back of my family's van. They're speaking in Chinese.
Okay.
I don't speak Chinese. I pull up my phone and I see Graham Stephan talking about real estate. This is OG Graham Stephan, right? Couple of units, house hacking. And I'm just like, I like what he's doing. And what you don't know is I had just left my W-2. You know, Olivia, who's here in the room with us, we had at the time 180 units. We had just retired financially free because of rentals. And I see what you're doing, and I'm like, that is so cool. Sharing, giving. I didn't even know YouTube could be monetized. I'm like, I like what this guy is doing. So what I want to do here is not talk about Graham Stephan, the 4.6 million subs on YouTube, or nearly the million on the Iced Coffee Hour, which we are in. I want to go back and revisit OG Graham. Because you started your journey, at least in real estate, in a recession, in the bad time. And I want to see if we can pull anything out of that to help folks understand what they could do in that kind of environment. So Are you comfortable going back to the very beginning?
Of course, ask away. And I got to thank the YouTube algorithm for, I guess, showing my content back then.
Yeah, it was all in Taiwan, no less.
It was niche back then. I mean, I was making videos about like how to get expired listings, which I'd never do now. But I'm like, you could go on the MLS and look at all the expired listings. And then you could go and knock on their door with a listing presentation. It's
what I got was hustle.
Yeah.
It's hustle, and that's where we're going to go. So I want to actually go back. I haven't heard this story, but tell me about Graham's, family life, grade school, junior high, high school. Was money a thing? Was it a stressor? Was your father and mother an entrepreneur? What was all of that like?
My mom was a therapist, but I would say mostly stayed with me as a kid. Okay. So she would do therapy like around my school time and stuff like that. My dad was an animator. So neither one of them were like, crazy savants or anything like that with money. I would say they weren't like poor by like, we never had a time where there was like not food on the table and stuff like that. But it was something where, they would always rent. They couldn't, buy a house when they were in Los Angeles. I mean, everything is so expensive there.
Even then, right?
Oh yeah, even then. I remember there was a house that they wanted to buy initially that I think they got offered like $350,000. This is the house that they were renting, $350,000. They couldn't do it. Now that house is probably worth 1.8. So I mean, go figure. But yeah, neither one. For me, money. I think I'd always just naturally been interested in it in some capacity. Like my earliest recollections are getting birthday money or like Christmas money. Like my grandma would sometimes give me a 20,
right?
And I would save them. Like I wouldn't want to spend that money.
Okay.
I think the only times I'd maybe spend the money like Pokemon cards, but for the most part, I would save it. I remember like keeping an envelope in my bedroom and just I got like. I really interested when it hit like $100.
Okay.
Or the idea of like, I could save this, and like if I get a 50, we're gonna have $150. There's no purpose, but I think I just naturally gravitated towards that.
So even when you were, I'll call it a teenager for lack of a better age, or maybe before that.
Before then,
you were always this person. You were always a saver, because that's when you watch your stuff over the last couple of years, it's still who you are.
Yeah.
You're still living way, way, way below your means, probably lower than you've ever done, just because the revenue is so high. But you were that way probably since birth.
Oh yeah, like they had that marshmallow test where they have like
one, two.
Or you could have two later. I'm like, let's forego the two. When
what's next?
Maybe it'll be 5 a year from now. Like I'd rather the 5. So I've always just been like mentally that type of person to delay things as long as possible.
So when did Graham get his first quote unquote job? And not necessarily the one after high. Like, were you doing anything in school, or was your job to go to school and get good grades?
My first job that I really there was a thing in, I don't even know if this doesn't count, but I've never told this one before. I was in, I think it was kindergarten.
Okay.
And you got to leave class a little early to go help the lunch lady.
Oh, okay.
And so I took it. And I think I was the only kid in the class that like took this thing. And I'm like, why wouldn't you take this? You would get a free lunch. And back then, by the way, like there's not the concept of like my parents couldn't afford food for me, but just the idea that I would be able to get this lunch provided. And like I'd get a free lunch. I would do that because my parents would never give me money to go lunch. They'd pack me to lunch. So I thought it was cool. Like I get a free lunch out of this, like a free cafeteria hot lunch.
Nice. Okay.
And I'd help out the lunch lady. I had so much fun doing that. So they would put me with like the hairnet on and the gloves.
And you're
I'd put on
5 or
this little
6.
apron, something like that. Yeah. And I'd be behind. I thought it was so cool that the kids would come up and like I was in charge of potatoes or something like that, or macaroni. And I'd sit there and like put it on the plate.
Wow.
And I loved it. It was just, for me, it was cool to do something like that.
Okay.
And I just enjoyed it. But from that, I think, I was never just into school. Like I went to an alternative school in Los Angeles where they didn't have any grades. They didn't have any structure. Like everyone, they called it different cores. Like you were core 1, core 2, core 3. Core 1 was like kindergarten, 1st, 2nd. Core 2 is like 3rd, 4th, 5th. And then you had 6th, 7th, 8th. So all the grades were together in one.
Okay.
So I was in a class with people 2 years older, and 2 years later, I was in a class with 2 years younger. And we'd all have these like group classes, no grades. We get checks, check plus, check minuses.
Wow.
And I mean, I think it was a bit of a joke in terms of learning, but it really taught you just like interpersonal dynamics, expressing your feelings, thinking outside the box, questioning why we do things the way, and I think that really helped me. So I was never like into school.
Okay.
I think I was just kind of used to that sort of environment where we question things and we do things our own way, and we're all celebrated for being individuals and everyone's unique. And so that's kind of how I grew up. And I must have been 11 years old, so this is like 2001. I was really into like having pets, and my dad would go and like get me like a pet tarantula, or like a leopard gecko, or just cool things. So I was always into pets, but I'd go to Allen's Aquarium in Los Angeles on Lincoln Boulevard, and I'd see the saltwater fish.
Sure.
And my parents were like, no, you're not going to get saltwater fish because it's like really hard to maintain. It's really expensive. Like we can't do saltwater fish. We can do freshwater.
Okay.
But I always wanted saltwater. And I think my dad teamed up with my grandma one year for, it was either a birthday or a Christmas, and they got me a saltwater aquarium.
Nice.
I was hooked. And this is about the time the internet was coming to be.
Okay.
So I would go on the internet and I'd type in saltwaterfish.com. And just like, and they had a forum. So I'd be on this forum all the time, like talking to these people about aquariums. I got so into it. And just in the process of doing that, I think I would just like get home from school, and all I wanted to do is go on saltwaterfish.com and talk aquariums with people online. Like that's all I wanted to do. And I'd like, before I go to bed, I would check and see if people commented on my threads, because these were like bulletin boards back then.
Yep.
And I checked the comments, and I thought it was so cool. But that evolved.
And again, you're 12-ish.
I was 12. Yeah, something like that. But I had this hyper fixation on saltwater aquariums for whatever reason.
You found your thing, you focused, and you
it.
just daily discipline.
Yeah. And what ended up happening, I went from that forum to like reeflounge.com to, and then there was like reefcentral.com, which is like the big aquarium forum at the time. Like everyone was on Reef Central. And I found a local aquarium enthusiast like meetup. I think it was called like MASLAC or something. The Marine Aquarium of Los Angeles County, Marine Aquarium Enthusiast of Los Angeles County. It's like something like that. And I'd go to these like monthly meetings for aquarium enthusiasts who would like rent out a back room at Denny's.
Right.
And there would be someone giving a presentation on like the ideal calcium if you want to like grow certain corals, or like the ideal pH, how to set up a marine tank. I was just enthralled by this thing. My parents would go with me, and they were really supportive.
Wow.
Take me to the Denny's, and like I was a kid, and I'd just get introduced to all these people. But what really changed it for me is I got a digital camera. Again, for a birthday or a Christmas, I got really into photography. So I'd take pictures of my aquarium and then post it on the forums. And people would comment on it, and I thought it was pretty good because I'd be really into like macro photography. And there was a meetup. It was called a frag swap.
Okay.
And so it would be a thing where like all the coral that you saw in that tank, I could go in with scissors and cut it.
Okay.
And then give it to somebody else or sell it to somebody else. They'll plant it on the rock, and it'll grow into another colony. And they could, so people would go and take pieces of their coral and trade them with each other.
Oh, okay.
Because it was a lot better than taking it from the ocean. You want it raised in an aquarium.
Yeah, okay.
So I would go to these frag swaps and take pictures of like people's tanks, because everyone would host it at their house, or take pictures of coral. And through that, I met someone who was the manager of this like marine aquarium wholesaler.
Sure.
And said, hey, we're really into this. We can talk to your parents, but if you're interested, come by. We could just show you the place. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, like this, like they were a sponsor of like Reef Central. So you would see like their banner at the top. I thought this like, oh my God, like the big deal here.
Right.
So my parents drove me down, and I was just taking photos of everything. I was just so interested in it. And the owner, his name is Chris, And we actually had him on the podcast at the Iced Coffee Hour. It was one of our first episodes, which was really cool to have. But he asked me if I wanted to just help out after school, and he checked with my parents. It's like, he's 12 years old, but if like he wants to just come and help, and he could help take pictures, he could help take care of some of the livestock and make boxes.
Right.
And they said yes. So I think it was every like Tuesday and Thursday I'd go after school, and they would just drop me off. Like I think the first few times they're a little cautious, so they're like gonna hang out. But then after like the third or fourth time, they realize this guy's not a creep. He's got a family. He's he's legit. So they dropped me off at like 3 p.m. and picked me up at like 8. But the entire time I was just like bagging up fish and coral. I was making boxes. I was helping piece together
you were having
orders.
the time of your life.
I loved it. It was the funnest thing. They'd give me like a sheet like this that would say like 3 of these fish, 5 of these snails, 2 of these corals. And I would go through and then find them in the whole warehouse and put them in rows. And then those rows would be backed up by somebody else. But I would go through, or they'd give me the sheet and say, make sure all these rows are correct.
Oh, okay.
And I'd go through and, find everything. And sometimes I'd be like, this piece doesn't look quite healthy. And I'd point that out and we swap it in with a new one. I loved it. But that's what got me into working. But that moment for me made me realize, like, why am I going to school? Like, I just want to do work. And, like, I really like this. And there's no point in going to school because I just want to do this. Even at the time, I wasn't making any money. But I was getting paid in fish and coral,
which to you was more than enough.
Yeah. So at the end of the week, he would say, "Okay, you could take home, X dollars in fish, or pick out this piece of coral that you want." And that's all I needed.
Right.
And then I think around like 15 or 16, maybe it was 14, I started getting paid per photograph I took, and then photoshopped and helped put on their website, because they were really big into I think they were the first coral company to do what you see is what you get. It never existed before. But they were the first ones to pioneer that. So I would be taking photos of like this specific coral, photoshopping it to make it look just like it does in person, sending it off to this guy who put it on the site. And I saw that at that point of thinking, how long does it take me to photograph everything? How many can I Photoshop? How many can I do in a night? And what's my hourly? And sometimes I'd be able to do like $120 in a night, which is like 15 years old, is insane money.
Right.
And they had 2 shipments a week. I think it was every Tuesday and Thursday. And I'd come in the next day to photograph what came in. And it just evolved from there. It's all I wanted to do. I would stay there sometimes until when I got my driver's license. I would stay there until midnight.
Yeah.
I would ditch school, work there all day, stay there until midnight, and just like go home just so I could sleep and do it again the next day because I loved it.
Well, there's something in that story that I want to kind of pull on a little bit, and that is once you find your passion, there are lots of ways. Like when you're 12 years old on a forum, you're replying and posting and looking. They don't know how old you are, right? At least most people don't.
I think I would tell people how old
well,
I
you
was,
would tell,
which back then on the internet. I mean,
yeah. But the idea is you're interacting with
oh yeah,
a wide range of individuals, most older than you.
Yeah, everyone was.
Oh yeah,
there's no one is 12 years old on a forum. All the dudes were like mid-20s, the earliest, like the youngest people.
Right. But again, you found it and you dove in and you kept learning, you kept going deeper, you became. What would you say after a year or so, you were probably more knowledgeable in that area than 99% of folks on the forum? And that's already a place that has, that's already the spot for all the best of the best?
Yeah, there was this guy, I think it was Robert Fenner. He owned a website called Web Media, and he hired me through the forums to go and write articles on acropora, which is a type of coral, but found me through that.
Wow.
And I did it. I absolutely loved it, but that was all from the forums. And I found that a lot of older people took me under their wing.
Because you showed passion.
Yeah, but I think but it ingrained this in me that like you could be really young and people just want to help you out. You have this massive advantage. And I don't want to say like I leaned into that, but like everyone was so generous with me.
Yeah.
And I had nothing but great experiences, and just people genuinely like seeing a kid doing this and like wanting to help them out.
Yeah. I still believe that exists today.
Yeah.
But I also believe there's a lot of folks that feel almost entitled. Like, you have this, just help me. Like, no, I mean, I have 24 hours in a day, just like you. You're not Graham, who's going deep and learning all these things. You got to put out effort first. And then especially if you're in real estate, there's so many people have been in the game a while that will help you, but you got to put in effort first. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. There's even someone, his name is Anthony, and he's been helping out on my main channel for years now. and I met him because of the comments section. He would rank my videos 1 out of 10 and know them better than I did. Oh, wow. So I would post a video and he said, this is a 3. Before I knew it was a 3.
Okay.
And he would consistently be right. And I reached out to him just over the comments, say, how do you know this? He says, well, I realize that the view count on YouTube is always off, so I don't even look at the views in terms of ranking. But I realized that you get a certain ratio of likes in the first 30 minutes. So I could multiply the number of likes you have with the number of views pretty quickly, and I keep a spreadsheet, and I know how this video ranks.
He keeps a spreadsheet.
He knows consistently. And I'm thinking, this is genius. And so I reached out to him. It turns out he was like 14 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Genius.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, hey, is there any way I could get in touch with your parents?
Right, gotta go.
Because I didn't want to and he said, yeah, sure. And I talked to his parents and I just explained, hey, here's who I am. Your son has this really gifted ability. Mm-hmm. Can I pay him and just hire him on to help me with my channel in terms of optimizing titles and thumbnails? His parents were enthralled. I mean, they were just happy that, and they said, "Oh no, he brings you up all the time at the dinner table. He talks about your video performance, everything." I'm like, he has such a natural gift at this that I think it would be a shame if that's not explored further.
Wow.
And so for years, I've paid him every week,
right?
And he's helped with a lot of titles. Sometimes I'll get a bad performing video, shoot him a text, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And he spends so much time on YouTube. He's like, "I think you should go at it from this angle, and this would be better." And I make those changes. And he is better than I would say most adults when it comes to YouTube analytics.
That's amazing. Yeah. And again, getting focused. Another thing is a lot of people try to be masters of everything. Mm-hmm. Nothing about your story, nothing about Anthony, was it?
Yeah.
Anthony's story. It's go get your thing, go deep in that area. Then you can expand and look at other things. Yeah. Like there's a lot of talk about multiple streams of income and all of those things. It's like, no, go do your thing, right? Go deep, go get some success. And then at some point in the future, you can expand. Would you agree?
I agree completely.
Yeah. Right. When was the first time you wanted something? Maybe it was a fish, maybe it was coral that was outside the reach of your parents, or your parents said no, and you had to go earn the money to go get
it's
it.
a Lotus Elise.
I
never. Okay, so the only thing that I really wanted up until then was the saltwater aquarium,
and they got that eventually.
Yeah.
Okay.
My dad and grandma
have a lot
really.
Of wants.
No, the Lotus Elise was the only thing that I saw when I was 15 years old. It was there was like a manager. So that warehouse that I worked at, there was a manager from like a different section of that because the warehouse they would sublease different parts.
Sure.
And he got a 2005 Starlight Black Lotus Elise, and I saw that car. And
wow.
It's just something. I was never into cars before that, but I saw that car, and instantly I said, "That's the one thing I want in life is that car. That's it." Okay. And at the time, they weren't terribly like expensive. It was like a $35,000 car. I said, I'm going to get that car. One day I'm going to make that happen. So really my motivation for the first like few years of working in real estate was like, I just want the Lotus Elise. I don't care about anything else. I want that one car.
Okay. Yeah. So, all right, we'll get to that story in a minute. So now you graduate high school, or it completes, or you get a check plus and you're done. However that works with the alternative school.
I went to another alternative school after that. I went to the alternative school to public school.
Okay.
And then got accepted in 10th grade to go to a private school.
Okay.
But on scholarship.
Oh, all right.
I think I amazed them with some of my interests, and I think I wrote a really good essay of why I should get in, and I got pretty much a full ride at this private school because of that.
Nice.
So yeah, but it was a very alternative school as well.
Okay.
So it was like kind of like the childhood sort of class. I resonated better with that.
So if I remember the story correctly from past hundreds of videos I've seen of yours, you did go to college for a minute. Wasn't for you. Is that fair?
I can't quite remember. No, I wanted to go to Pepperdine.
Okay.
I wanted to go to Pepperdine, and that was the only college I wanted to go to, and I was so set on going there. And the reason I picked that is because I thought the campus was really nice. And at the time, I really thought that like I had what it takes to get in because I could wow them with my skills. I didn't have like good grades. I think my SAT was horrible.
Wow.
But I just thought that I had what it would take, and they didn't accept me.
Okay.
And at that point, I was kind of scrambling to figure out what to do. And around that same time, I think it was like right before then when I found out Pepperdine denied me. Like our school kind of finished in February of the calendar year, but we didn't technically graduate until like May or June. So there's this weird like kind of in between where you didn't have to show up to classes, but like you're still kind of like enrolled as a student in high school. Mm-hmm. And I got a really brief job doing data entry at this precious metals firm. And all I knew, I thought I just wanted to be something with investments.
Okay.
And I thought I was really into coin collecting. It kind of makes sense that like precious metals and numismatic coins, and this would be an easy in. And I thought I could work my way up in this company. And I just cold emailed them, and they got back to me, and they hired me to do the very basic data entry at $8 an hour. Maybe it's like $7.50. Whatever the minimum wage was in 2008 was what I got paid.
Okay.
And it was just a terrible job. That was 6 weeks there. First day, I was so excited because you had to wear a suit to the office.
All right, gotta put on a tie,
or like
big boy.
a collared shirt. And I thought like, this is so neat that I get to dress up and go to work.
Go to work.
And I remember it was soul crushing.
Soul
yeah,
crushing.
it really was. It was like it was all these stupid things. Like I wanted to wear headphones because you're just doing mind-numbing data entry. Like I'm getting these orders coming in, and I'm supposed to type in certain numbers onto the computer, like sales numbers, and they wouldn't allow me to listen to my iPod or the iPhone with music on it.
Yeah.
And I said, why? And they said, well, that's just the company policy. And then I said, well, can we make it, because I'm in the back office. Right. Like, is there any way?
No customer interaction?
Nothing. And they said, you can't do that because it would be distracting to everyone else. I said, how would it be distracting? I said, well, if you do it, then everyone has to do it. And I was like, okay. There was another day where I forgot to wear dress shoes. And again, I'm in the back office. Right. So no customers see me or whatever. And I forgot them for whatever reason, no dress shoes. And they threatened to send me home, like unpaid for the whole day because I didn't wear dress shoes. Wow. And I pleaded with them. I'm like, I'm here the whole day, it's a lot. And they said, okay, fine. If you just make sure not to walk through these certain sections, we'll let you stay today, but you can never have this happen again. Wow. And then I got in trouble twice. One was I went to there's like different managers, so you have to like work your way up. I went to like the lower manager, and I said that we should replace the styrofoam cups with paper because the styrofoam cups were bad for the environment, and they were like really small, and everyone, it just basically just gulps down like a little thing and throw them away. Right. So I said we should do paper cups, and I was just told that's not your place. Don't be focusing on that. Focus on your work. That was discouraging to me. Yeah. There was another one where I went up to the CEO of the company. This is like I had just started like a few days. And I walked, like his door was open. He was not on a phone call. He was like looking at a piece of paper, but not busy whatsoever. Okay. Had the TV on with, talking in the background. And I knocked, and I think his name was Michael. And I just knocked, and I said, hey, I just want to say hi. I want to introduce myself. My name's Graham. I just started. I just want to say I'm really excited to work here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. If there's anything that you need that I could do, like I'm here to help. It's just a really nice one. Yeah. And I just want to introduce myself. It's great to meet you. And he looked up and he's like, thanks, I really appreciate it. And I thought, that went well. Yeah. Well, later that day, I got a call. And I had to go and speak with the upper manager, so the guy below him. Right. And said I could never do that again. Wow. I said, why? He said, well, there's a, what did he say? He said that there's like a ranking that you have to go through. And if I want to communicate with this guy, I have to start with, her name was Roxanne. She's like the back office manager. And Roxanne's going to talk to this other guy, Mark. And then Mark is going to talk to this guy. And like, you have to go up the ranks. Like, I couldn't go and just knock on his door and say hi. Soul crushing. And that was weird. It was so strange to me. But then also, I noticed that all these people in the back office were just like zombies. They'd get there on Monday and just like, they looked dead in the eye. And the only time you'd see them like happy or come to life was Friday at like 2-3 p.m. after lunch. That was the only time you'd see them ever joking around or having a good time or messing around. That's it. And then we also had, I think it was like once a month, it was like a casual day where you could like go and wear whatever you wanted to. I thought it's like a casual day. This is so, I just thought the whole thing was stupid. And I wanted to quit multiple times, and I felt bad because this lower manager was the one who seemed to like give me a shot. Right. And it seems like he kind of put his... Hi, Bailey. Bailey, stop it. It seems like he kind of put his name hiring me, like as he's the decision on this one. So he really pressured me to stay. But I went to him a few times and said, hey, this isn't a good fit for me.
Right.
And I want to do so. I want to be in sales, and that's what I really wanted to be. I wanted to be an account executive.
Okay.
And he says, you can't be an account executive because you have no sales experience. And I said, well, I could learn the sales experience. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like, that's what I really want to do. You can't do that. You don't have the sales experience. Don't worry. You stay here long enough, we'll be able to fit you in. But until you got to stick doing what you're doing.
Pay your dues.
Exactly. And then I went to him again for some other reason, and I said, hey, I just don't know if it's the right fit. And he gave me this story that made me feel so bad. He said, you remind me of this one guy who I know. And he's like, you're going to have these paths in life. And I'm going to tell you, he sat me down and he told me a story about this guy who, anytime he gets to a roadblock, instead of like working through it and going past it to get to like the other side,
right,
he'll stop, go sideways, and then try to go around it. And if he can't go around it, he ends up like turning back. And like, so he told me this example of this guy who would like get to a roadblock, stop, and then turn around. And another example of this guy who would get to a roadblock and then like push through it. And he was like, which one are you? Are you going to be the guy who gets to a roadblock and like stops, or the one who has to, persevere through it? I'll tell you, there's another guy who like quit his job, and I told him he should stay and work through it, and he decided not to.
Right.
And he ended up coming back years later, begging for his job back because he got a divorce. And we told him like, we couldn't hire you back. You don't want to end up being that guy. Like, you want to persevere through that. But then I was like, oh crap! Like, I don't want to be that first. I want to be the second guy who overcomes it.
Right.
So like, I didn't quit, and it kept building up, and then finally I wrote this whole letter, and I went into him knowing that like, this is my decision. I've made it. Like,
we're done.
100%. I handed it in, and he I think tried to talk me out of it, and I was over it. But that was so happy. I was so happy after leaving that job.
There you go. Well, where do you go next? So now you don't have a job.
Yeah.
You're graduated high school.
No job, no college.
Still with your parents? Still living with mom and dad?
Yeah, still living with parents.
Okay.
There was a point when I was doing the data entry that I started to look into getting my real estate license.
Okay.
So I had signed up online. I had gotten like these beginner textbooks to read through. Yeah. So like during my lunch or downtime or after working, I started going through the process of getting my real estate license.
Okay.
So by the time I left that, I was most of the way through, I believe, of getting through that real estate license. But what I would do instead is just go to open houses to meet agents. So every Sunday, I would go on. It was either online or maybe it was even in like a newspaper back then. I don't remember. But I would just look for listings that were over $5 million in Los Angeles. That was my criteria. That was the beginning of 2000.
Why $5 million?
I figured that if I wanted to be a real estate agent, I'd just start at the top.
Oh.
Like, I just thought, why waste my time?
Why not? Yeah,
If I'm going to do anything, I may as well just like $5 million and over. Like,
okay. And this is $5 million
2008.
Okay.
So I would just go to these open houses and walk in. So stupid. I would say 20% of the time I pretend to be a buyer as some 18-year-old kid, and they would see through it. Oh. I'm sure, like looking back now, but I'd walk in and think, oh yeah, they're going to take me seriously. They never did. No. So I would go in though, most of the time and just be honest. I'd say, hey, I want to get my real estate license. What advice would you have for me? Like, how did you do this? How did you get started? And almost everyone is really dismissive. They say, how old are you? 18. Yeah, go to college. College would be nice. And everyone is saying like, it's a different market. It's difficult.
So this again is 8. So we're already over the peak.
This is just like it had just peaked and things were slowing down.
Okay.
So pre like Lehman Brothers crash and everything, but things were really slowing down. Lending was contracting. Yeah. So everyone was really discouraging. There's one agent. Her name was Ginger Glass.
I love that you remember all these names.
Oh yeah, I remember everybody. Ginger Glass was really encouraging, and she's like a top agent. And so it kind of goes to show. The one thing I noticed is that the more successful the agent was, the more encouraging they were, which is really odd. Like all the agents who are not encouraging didn't do sales. It's like when you would go back and look through, it's like they had one listing,
right?
And they weren't doing that well. But all the agents who were really successful were actually encouraging me. And she was one of the ones I still remember walking into that open house on Roscommare Road in Los Angeles.
What a memory!
She had this amazing listing, and she would answer my questions, and she didn't just dismiss me, and she gave me some time, like not like 30 minutes, but I kept doing that, and I eventually met this one guy. His name was Vigeli. Mm-hmm. It was his house on Bel Air Road in Bel Air, and the listing was probably right at $5 million. It was not busy whatsoever, and I came in there and I told them like, I'm 18, I want to get my real estate license, I want to become a real estate agent. What advice? And he told me, I started around your age as well. I didn't have a college degree. I moved here all the way from Greece. I didn't know any English. I worked as as a busser at a restaurant. I worked my ass off to get my real estate license. And we talked for probably like 2-3 hours. Nice. Like people would come in and, he would, take a break and go talk to them but come back. We had a great talk. And then he said, he asked, I think just for me to show up at his office like that week and we could talk further.
Okay.
And I just showed up and he just gave me this proposal. He said, hey, if you want to work underneath me, we'll just split everything 50-50 that you bring in.
Okay.
And I'll teach you what to do. And I thought this is fair. So he started having me, the open house sheets. He said, call everyone on these books. And these books went back like years.
Right.
So I was calling people who had been to some of these open houses like 2 years ago. He was never going to talk to them. So he would have me call them up and I'd say, hey, my name is Graham from the office of Vigelli at Coldwell Banker. You saw this property at blank, wanted to get some feedback on it. What did you think? Oh, yeah, you didn't like it. What didn't you like about it? All right, cool. What is it that you're looking for, by the way? Mm-hmm. If I have anything else for you, I'll pass it by you.
Right.
Go over what they want. Okay, cool. Is this the best email for you? Okay, perfect. You'll get an email from me in 10 minutes. I'll send you what I would recommend you see. Just let me know. If it's not for you, just call me and I'll send you some other properties.
Yeah.
And, it's funny. Everyone that I called and was just like, hey, you stopped by this open house. I just want to get feedback. Just could you tell us honestly what you thought of it? Like no one was rude. No one was like, why are you calling me? Get out of the way. But I also think it's a different time back then when now you have like text messages and emails. People hate getting calls. I think back then it was more of like a new, not a novelty. Like, getting a phone call. It's not the same now. But so I started doing that. And the big break, well, really for this guy, all I did for the first few months is follow him around. Anything he needed, I would do.
Yeah, he told you what to do and you did it. Didn't ask questions.
Never. And I never asked for a single dollar.
Right.
I was just happy to be there. So he would say, and I was, by the way, at the time working 7 days a week, probably 12 hours a day. Every day. I was be in the office before him and I would leave. He would be in the office late, like 10 p.m. But I'd leave with him. He leaves at 10, I leave at 10.
Okay.
Anything he wanted me to do. If he would say, hey, Graham, take my car and go put up 12 open house signs on Wilshire Boulevard.
Done.
Fine. Graham, if you could go and grab this from this property, bring this check to this fine, I'll do anything. Didn't matter. I didn't want money. I just wanted to learn. But the real point for me where I started noticing things taking off, he had like a lease listing and he wanted me to post it. Or there's someone else in our office that was posting lease listings on Craigslist.
Okay.
And I thought, this is a great idea. It's Craigslist. So I post his lease listings on Craigslist and I would go and take photography because the photography that he had was not like the best. But since I had my camera and I knew how to photograph things from the reef aquarium, so I'd tell him, how about that? Let me go and take photos of this. I'll Photoshop them. I'll put it on Craigslist.
Right.
Perfect. So I ended up doing my first few deals from Craigslist of like, and these were like $300 to $700 commissions.
Yeah.
Renting places on Craigslist, and their leases like $2,500 to $5,000 a month. And sometimes people would call me from those and say, I didn't like this place. And I'd say, well, let me find you something.
Right.
And I'd find them something. And I get paid a commission from the landlord. So for the tenant, it cost them nothing. But I would make some money on the back end.
Right.
And I just churn through these leases. And I really optimized it. Like I took it just as seriously on Craigslist as I do now on YouTube. Because back then you could do HTML on Craigslist. So you could go through and like customize your whole post. And I would A/B test every single thing from putting like my name at the top, my name at the bottom, Graham Stephan Coldwell Banker, my name, my phone number, my email. And I like got this perfect template that I believed worked better than every other ad on Craigslist. And I would even experiment with the titles of the posts. Like I noticed when you go in the for sale section, this was 2008, so a long time. I don't know if it's still the case today. The for sale section or the job hiring section, you'd have these cool little like emoji things, like the stars and the squares and the blocks. No one did that for housing. Nobody. And so I said, well, why can't I just put this in housing? So I did. Yeah. And so it was so you would scroll down this thing and you would know within a second my listings.
Right.
Because you would see these big blocks of text. And I experimented from like long titles, short titles, and I just found this template that worked so amazingly well to get people to reach out to me. Like, I realized that most people will not reach out to you unless they see a phone number and an email address.
Okay.
But they'll email you, but they're not going to call you. But if they just see an email, they're sketched out. So they want a phone number in there too, just for legitimacy. So I put a phone number in there instead. If I led with Coldwell Banker, they would immediately think, oh, it's this big company. But if I led with my name, they would be more likely to reach out because it seems more personable. I figured out all the picture placements, which thumbnails you want to have. I figured everything out. And then I found a Craigslist tracker where you could track the number of impressions a certain page gets. And I paid for this thing so I can get unlimited tracking.
Right.
And so I'd have this huge spreadsheet of every single one of my listings with the titles and the price points. And I could see that like 80% of the people reaching out to me were looking between that were really good clients, were like between the price points of like $7,000 to $15,000 a month.
Okay.
Beverly Hills, Bel Air, West Hollywood, Westwood. That's it. So I said, why am I going to waste my time posting all these other leases if it doesn't fit this criteria? So that's the point where I started going to other agents in my office and just asking them, hey, you have a lease like this. It's been on the market for 30 days. You haven't rented it. The photography's not that good. I'll give you free photography. You could take it, put it on the MLS. It's free. In exchange, just let me post it on Craigslist and bring a tenant. If you rent it out before I bring you someone, I get nothing, but let me at least post it on Craigslist. Almost every agent would say yes to that.
Sure.
And then in a lot of those cases, I would be the ones to bring the tenant because they'd reach out to me. Or they don't like the house, but then I could help that tenant find something else.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I was inundated with lease clients.
So 2 real life stories. Interested in aquariums, coral, fish as a teenager or young person, then a teenager. Now jumping in the game with real estate and leases. You go all in and you never stop learning, and you're A/B testing and doing all of these things, which obviously we now know you play with still today.
Yeah.
But none of that seems hard. Why do you think a lot of people don't go even half that way on something that they want to do?
I think I'm an anomaly. I hate
You're
that.
broken?
It probably, I love working, and I don't think everyone's like that.
Okay.
But also at the time, really for me, I've always loved working, but I think 18 to 22 for me was especially pungent, was because my girlfriend broke up with me. She went off to college and ended things. And I was distraught. I was 18 years old.
Sure.
And I was I poured everything I had in my work. Everything. So, and I was so sad.
Escape hatch.
Yeah, but I was also so sad of being alone at that point because it's all my friends went off to college.
Okay.
She broke up with me. I was alone, from that social standpoint. So if I wasn't working, I was alone, and I hated that feeling. And so I was I hated when I wasn't busy on Saturdays. I'm what do I do? I don't
Something's off.
Yeah. But yeah, all my friends went off to college, and even when I would see them, it all of a sudden we felt so different because I couldn't relate to them anymore. They would come back. Oh man, I got fucked up the other night. This and that. Yo, we should get fucking. And I was thinking, no, I'm working. I'm talking to all these professionals,
right?
And we were just it was speaking different languages. I couldn't relate to them anymore. But I really I would say that was a big motivation for me at the time.
Okay.
And looking back, part of me wonders if she didn't break up with me, would I still have that same push initially? I would say no, because I did everything I could to keep myself as busy as possible to get over that.
All right. That's a little self-reflection there. I like that.
Probably.
So you're still, Graham, the living below your means. Are you still with mom and dad at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. When did investing come, investing in stocks or, was a house hack the first thing, or when did you do stocks, or when did you plant your first investment?
I did stocks in high school.
Okay.
But so I had taken $2,000 that I had saved up from working at the Marine Aquarium place.
Sure.
And I put it in a Scott trade account under my dad's name. And and I did investing. And I thought I was a genius because I found, I think it was called the penny forums or something like that, penny stocks. And I subscribed to Timothy Sykes, which again, we also had him on the podcast, which is kind of cool.
That's awesome.
And I got his newsletter. There's something called the Penny Trader or something like that. And I took the $2,000 and I'd buy in and out of these penny stocks. And initially I did really well, and I turned the 2,000 into like about $4,000, and I thought like, wow, I could make $2,000 in high school doing like penny stocks. I'm a genius. But then I practically lost all of it on a series of really bad trades. I did very little research on these stocks. If someone came up with a good like post on the forum, I was in.
Story.
I was in.
Yeah.
It's like this medical company is about to come out with this thing, and it's about to 20x and this and that. So I'd look at the chart, and I'm telling myself, oh, it's about to break out. Like you could see this consolidation here. The volume is building. It's about to break. And I just went all in on this one thing, thinking it was going to 10x. And like I was like, okay, $4,000 times 40,000 is how much I can make on this. Yeah, it just lost. And then I took a break on that. But besides that, in real estate, what did I buy? I bought a used Toyota Prius. Was the first
car
purchase that was the investment in myself, because before then it was a 1998 Ford Explorer with 100 and something thousand miles, dented fender, and I would park far away from the houses and then walk up early so they didn't see me pulling up in the car. Right. So I bought a Toyota Prius at the time, was like, a nice respectable car. Investing, I saved. I don't think I invested. I think it was all savings because I just didn't know when the next commission was going to be.
Because that's the big thing about full commission is you're very lumpy, right? So you create a baseline and then you just you have to live to the next paycheck.
Yeah. So I just saved. I kept saving and saving and saving, and saving was just the default, and just not spending money.
Yeah, I like that. So what was it like being an agent in a recession? Because it got bad after 2008, right? 9, 10, 11. It got pretty bad.
Yeah. I had no concept of anything before then. So for me, it was normal for me. So I didn't have any idea of like, hey, this is bad. To me, it was like, this is what it is. It's like, it's not bad. This is good. It just became the norm, I guess. And it was normal for most listings to be short sales, foreclosures, SEOs, or not SEOs. What's the bank owned? REOs. That was mostly normal to me, or heavily negotiating. Like a property comes on the market for $3 million, you offer 2.2.
Yeah, disrespectful offers.
Yeah. And the sellers would, in most cases, take it because it's like, the home across the street is foreclosure. Right. You can't compete with that. But it was good for me because all the people who weren't buying were renting. The people who were, I don't want to say losing their homes, but selling their homes, letting it go back to the bank, they were renting. Sure. So you had this surplus of like really high quality, great people who were renting because it just made financial sense. And you also had very savvy people saying, I think the market's going to keep going down. Now's not a good time to buy. So I'm going to rent. Yeah. And so I got to help a lot of those people. And then when the market rebounded, a lot of those people, I'd stay in touch, would come back to me, and I would help them buy a house. So it was like a good circle.
When did that bottom come to SoCal? It was like 2010?
Probably 10 or 11, depending on the area. Okay. So a few years into it.
And how long were you in real estate? How long did you go?
How long did I go?
Yeah, like were you still selling houses in 13, 14?
Oh, yeah. I stopped selling real estate in 2020.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was your main source of income for 5 years, 6 years.
That was the main source of income really until 2018 or 2018. I believe it was 2018. Okay. Maybe 2019 when YouTube surpassed real estate sales. Okay. Somewhere around there.
Let's say it's 2018. So again, where was your time commitment, say 2016? Because you're on YouTube, I think, at that point. But where was your time commitment versus selling real estate and then just starting this, YouTube channel?
2016 was 90% still real estate. 2016, I technically started YouTube December of 2016. Okay. So it was still real estate at that point. Yeah.
Now, do you remember why you started? Why you created it for your first channel? Was it just to educate, or why'd you do it?
I've always wanted to do it. I got really inspired by this guy. His name is Rob Dom. Okay. And he was kind of a car channel, but he made this video in 2010 or 2011 that was like how I bought a Lamborghini Diablo. and went through the logistics of like what he did for a living to buy that car
the
and
Diablo's
how,
nice.
and like how you could be successful at a young age. I think he was like late 20s and he ran his own computer business. And he talked about like every detail of what you need to do to buy a Lamborghini.
Okay.
And I thought, man, this is like so much potential in doing what he's doing and just talking to people about like common sense business stuff. But I thought for the longest time, no one would want to listen to me. Mm-hmm. I have nothing to offer anybody. And at the time, people wouldn't take you seriously on YouTube without a Lambo. And that was the reality. It's just like any other car, people wouldn't care. But if you had a Lamborghini, people would pay attention for whatever reason. Okay. So I thought I couldn't make videos unless I had a Lamborghini. Okay. But 2016 came around, and I just realized I had been putting this off for such a long time that if I didn't do it, then I would never do it. And then I just thought, like, hey, in the future, am I going to regret not giving it a chance?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I'm going to regret it. So that's when I decided to make the video just at an open house. And I said, I've just got to get something out. And I just filmed it on my iPhone, edited it on iMovie, learned how to edit from YouTube videos, posted it. And I was an avid watcher of YouTube. Like when I wasn't working, I'd be watching YouTube videos. I'd get home, watch YouTube videos. It was always for me YouTube.
Right.
And so just knowing YouTube and thinking like, what would I want to click on? Or what are the sorts of videos I would want to watch? And I made those videos. And I talked about my experience of getting real estate and sales, different strategies that people could use, what's worked well with me. I didn't think it would amount to anything.
Right. No. Yeah. And that's a great mission, because one of the things I'm trying to get W-2 employees now to think about is starting a channel around their passion, right? That doesn't have to be investing, housing, just whatever your hobby is, whether it's coral, whether it's fish, cars, whatever it is. If you can just take the time to create a channel and let it grow over years, it won't be 4.6 million in all likelihood, but it'll be something, because in a decade, you will regret not doing that, because the time's going to go by no matter what.
Yeah.
And if you can build a loyal following, or your tribe, or whatever you want to call that, it's such a kick to have a channel that, you know, you communicate with everybody and you have this almost family atmosphere or feedback loop. I think more Gen X, my age group, and baby boomers should start a channel on something that they've loved for 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't know why they don't, but
it's a lot of work. You have to be, again, obsessed with, because otherwise you're just going to make videos and talk to nobody. Yeah. And then it's like, then it gets discouraging. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a lot of work, because actually Olivia, who's in the room with us, she asked me, how many videos do you post a week across your multiple channels?
Well, it used to be 12. Now it is probably 4. So I've taken a big step back. Probably 4.
And that's last 12 months or so.
No, last 6 months has maybe been 4, maybe 5 months. Before then, though, it was really 7 to 10.
Okay. 7 to 10. All edited, all
not including clips channels.
Right, of course. Yeah. Because one of the things that I have found interesting, and of course nowhere near where you are, I do lives, and I do an interview like this. I use Zoom, so it's not even StreamYard, and I load the file later that day. No editing, no nothing. But we do a current topic, right? We do one topic, 12 minutes. It's working. It's fun. It's getting feedback. I don't know. I don't know that it has to be a lot of work.
You would get way more reach.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, doing in person, not live.
Yeah. Okay.
Way more reach, because if what you're doing now is working, it would be 10 times that.
Yeah.
With some optimizing. Or we also, for the podcast, we edit our podcast for retention. So if there's a part where someone drags on for too long, snip
it. Yeah.
If there's a part in the video that works better earlier, we move it. So it's like a puzzle that we piece together. It's like this piece should go here, this piece should go here, this one doesn't belong. You come up with something.
Yeah.
And so that retention really helps a lot.
Yeah. When you think back to you as a 15, 25-year-old, and how old are you now? 30?
33.
33. Have you always been an entrepreneur? Do you see yourself as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you like to work.
I love working. Yeah.
That's weird. You like to work. Are you a visionary, or you're just in the mud?
I'm probably in the mud.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think too much of it.
Right.
My guide has always been, do I feel good doing it?
Right.
Am I interested in it? And does it make time stop? Like, can you get just
You make time stop.
Yeah, can you get so into it where you just like blink and like 5 hours went by?
Yeah.
Does that happen? And if you're miserable, I couldn't do it.
Okay.
So I've always gravitated towards something that makes me really happy.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. All right, so let's talk about when did house hacking first hit your radar? Like the idea that you're going to buy something, but you probably can't afford it, but you're going to get some roommates to help.
Yeah, it's probably a book I read. There's the book on rental property investing, Brandon Turner.
The one on Scott Trench, I think it is.
Maybe that was it. What was the name called? I'm blanking on the name.
It'll come to me.
The guide on rental property investing,
like
or it's like some book like that. We could put it on the screen.
Yeah.
That book got me thinking, probably 2009 or 10, give or take.
Makes sense. Yeah.
That you could buy a rental property, fix it up, rent it out. It's cash flow positive. Save the money. Do a cash out refinance, buy another one, repeat it, and just do that whole process. Mm-hmm. And so I think at like 20 years old, 21, whenever that book came out, I had this like computer note thing where I would write out like, this year, buy this property for X amount of dollars, and then I assumed it would appreciate like 3% a year.
Sure.
And then I mapped out my income based on like where I thought it would be worst case, best case, neutral case.
Right.
And I mapped out this whole thing from like $0 to $20,000 a month in net rental income. And I'm like, if I could just buy one rental property every year for the next 15 years, I could retire and do whatever I want to. So that kind of set it off in motion. But then it was also the Reddit community, personal finance initially, and then Reddit financial independence, where people were really talking about like how to do this stuff. Mm-hmm. So the house hacking for me really came from like watching what clients were doing, and I was really fortunate to be able to see really successful, very smart clients. I could just watch what they're doing and mimic it. And I was a real estate agent at that time to be able to help them out with this. And sometimes in showing, I'd ask questions. So there's one investor I remember was buying a lot of properties in South LA in 2010. And I'd ask
Great
him, like,
time.
Yeah. And he was buying these properties that were under 250 grand. Now they're all probably worth 750, minimum 750. Probably a lot of those are now $1 million properties. He's buying for 250. And so he would have me go and like get the lockbox for him, open up, I'd meet him anywhere, and I'd just ask him, why this area? Oh, because you could do this and this and this. And I think his thing at the time was Section 8 rentals.
Sure.
So he just explained the whole process to me. And we're doing this as like going through the thing. And then I would offer, because he's going to fix it up. I'm like, hey, do you mind if I could be here while the contractors are here? Can I talk to? He's like, I don't care. So I'd go by and I'd learn and see what they're doing. And I just ask him, like, how do you fix this place up? He's like, oh, we're going to do this, this, and this, and this. And I'm like, how do you pick those tiles? Oh, it's because, these the tiles are going to be lasting a lot longer than if we did like hardwood floors.
Sure.
Or like, there was like a big open room, and he was like, yeah, we could actually just put a wall up here, put in a bathroom over there, and now that's another bedroom. This bonus room in the back, that will now be the primary suite, and there's like water fixtures over here. We could put that over there. It's really easy. And it's just, I was just really interested in that. And they would just tell me kind of what to do. So that really got me into it.
Yeah.
But his thing, he went from South LA to then San Bernardino and started buying in San Bernardino. And that kind of caught on for me when I was doing the numbers. I was like, wow. Yeah, because back then, every property made 14%. Assuming you bought it cash, every property was a 14% net return. Every single one of them.
Every time, yeah.
And we would sometimes find properties up to like 20%. I'm like, wait a second, it pays for itself in 5 years. It's insane.
Yeah.
So that's how he kind of like scoured in, and his criteria was my criteria. He was like, he wants newer than 1978, minimum 3 bedrooms, minimum 2 bathrooms, minimum lot size, I think of like 15,000 square feet. He had some like basic parameters that if he was buying the more expensive ones, I would say, oh yeah, I'll buy the least expensive ones. And so I just learned so much just from watching what the clients were doing.
Wow.
Yeah, and I just assumed too they must be way smarter than I am because they're the ones putting all of their money where their mouth is.
They're putting money down. They got to be smart.
So there must be something to this.
Yeah. Well, I would call that a buy box. You got to know what you're looking at, and a buy box is permission to look and also ignore.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people get distracted with lots of things. You had a show that I watched while I was on my run yesterday, the day before, with Caleb Hammer.
Yeah.
And somewhere around the middle, you talked about some money insecurity. You and Caleb both, right? We're kind of like afraid. I think Caleb said he's afraid of dying broke in Walmart, I think was the line.
Maybe.
Something like that. But money insecurity, really? I haven't gotten in a vibe like that so far during this whole discussion. But where do you think that comes from? Have you had it always?
I've always had it.
Okay.
Yeah, like every commission I would make, I would budget and assume that's the last commission I will ever make.
Get. Okay.
Always. And I'd budget based off that. Now I kind of think it's changed slightly, but I never want to be forced to do a job I don't want to do.
Okay.
Ever. And so it's having that freedom to stop or do something else at any point that I really like. I never like being tied down to something. I never like it that I'm forced to do something I don't want to do. Okay. I get a lot of satisfaction in feeling like I have a lot of choice and autonomy in my life, that I could pick and choose things. So I think, I kind of budget my life around what I could make from my investments.
Sure.
I just assume that everything goes to zero tomorrow. And then I also assume, can I sustain the current lifestyle with variables on top of that? Can I sustain what I'm doing now with the market going down 50%?
Okay.
Can I sustain that with perhaps, a medical injury or incident? What if I have children? What if one of them has a disability? What if I have to take care of parents? There's all these things that get piled on. And so I'm like, if I'm sustained here, let's build up the arsenal for all these miscellaneous life things that one of them will probably happen. So I'd rather be prepared for that and everything, because why not? It gives me a little more peace of mind.
No, I'm just trying to play with that, right? Because, and I'm trying to relate it to, average Joe and Jane, right? And let's talk about average Joe and Jane, right? We, whether or not we're in a recession or not, there's one that's coming, right? They're a part of the economic world. You really started your real estate career in a recession. What kind of advice could we give them? Because if we admit that Graham's broken, right? You can get singly focused and then become great at something. What's some advice we have for, average Joe and Jane?
Hopefully it's to find a passion that you really, really, really like doing, and then you never have to work.
I like that.
So that's always been the case for me, is I've always found something that I've loved.
Something
that I would do for free that just happened to make money.
Yeah.
But I also understand that not people have hobbies and interests that don't make money, or they don't want to turn them into a business. They don't, and a lot of people too. I initially I thought, like, why wouldn't everyone just want to be an entrepreneur? I met so many people who don't want that. Purely just but who just want like a normal life where they could check out at 5 p.m., not worry about business or anything,
making payroll.
Or spend time with family. And I think from my mind is wired for high stress, where I'm always working and always doing something.
Still?
And other people, for the most part, I think I'm always thinking about something. I've eased off a bit, but I'm still thinking about it a lot.
Yeah.
So my advice hopefully would be find something you really love doing. And I know it's easier said than done. Beyond that, though, I'd say probably really like hunker down on personal finance. And you don't have to know a lot. I mean, most of what you need, what did they say? It could be written on an index card. I mean, that's good for 90% of people, I'm sure.
I agree.
But live below your means.
Yeah. The thing that I'm trying to get more and more people thinking about is what I call what is called discretionary income or disposable income. Because everybody I go to when I ask these questions, like, how much do you make? Everybody knows. Like, what's the net? Most people know there's taxes, and they give you another number. And then I go, what's your discretionary income? And they look at me like I don't know what, like you're speaking Latin. The key to me is to know what it is. And if you don't know what it is, go figure it out, right? That's take your net minus your fixed expenses. And at the bottom is basically money you can light on fire and you're good. And then your job is to grow that. And there's only 3 things you could do. You could whack expenses that are frivolous. You could increase your income, or you could do both. Right? And that's the thing that I think is the unlock, because I believe that getting wealthy is easy. It's a simple formula. I'm going to give you the formula, tear it apart if you don't like it. 1 is you have to create and grow discretionary income. 2, you have to become elite at something. It's become a passion or whatever. You You just invest, and you become elite at that thing, whether it's Coral or it's Lisa's or YouTube for you. And then the trick that everybody hates, you got to do it for 10 years. That's what I think getting wealthy is. What do you think of that?
I would agree. I think 10 years is pretty good.
It's not get rich quick.
Right.
It's, you basically have to have compounding work and inflation work.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody wants it today.
Yeah. I think it's also realizing when you're on the wrong path. You don't want to stay on the wrong path for 10 years. Like that, precious metals firm example. Like, I would hate to give that 10 years.
Yeah.
And just making sure, someone told me a long time ago, it's like putting a ladder on the building and realizing that you've climbed up the wrong building. And you don't know sometimes until you get to the top. But if you recognize that you're going on the wrong ladder, working your way up, it's okay to get down and find another building.
Find another building. Yeah. Move the ladder, because again, and that's what I see. Because again, I've been interacting with people for 4 or 5 years on YouTube, and I can definitely tell when somebody's a shooting star. What I mean by that is they come in, they're all excited, their hair's on fire, they'll read everything, and then they're gone in 30 days. Right? They're on to the next thing. Where there's some people that go, I get it. Get a buy box, look at it every day, track it, figure out average, write great offers. And it's hard. Like 2020 and 2021 were hard. I wrote 100 offers and didn't get anything, right? But there is a process. And that's what you've shared in your different examples. There is a way to do it. There are people that will help you show interest, show excitement. And people that are successful, whether it's the agent or the guy with the fish, they'll take you under their wings.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot in that. I think there's so many people that just expect someone who has more to give, and it's like that's not how it works.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. How do you let's say we head into a recession sometime in the next 2 years. What I've told people is you're going to live through 4 or 5 of them. Right? So that this is not abnormal, right? It's not a 100-year pandemic. But you got to be ready to strike, because recessions is where wealth can be built, right? You've told plenty of examples of the guy buying 250K houses that are worth 750. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get a 60% discount in a bull market. Mm-hmm. So, we're going to have one. What's Graham going to do in the next recession?
I have no clue, because COVID taught me not to time the market. I mean, that was such a interesting time where for those first few weeks, you thought the world was going to end.
Yeah,
but now in hindsight, it was like the best time to buy was that. So I've stopped thinking about when is a good time, when is a bad time.
Okay, just dollar cost average.
I've just dollar cost averaged. Real estate is the only thing for me where I feel like not market timing, but there could be just bad deals out there, and I see more bad deals than good deals.
True.
So
today,
for me, when I started buying real estate, it was just such a no-brainer where I knew I couldn't lose on this, because to build the property was going to cost 3 times what I was buying it for. So I knew
you call to get insurance, and you're like, you bought that for what?
Yeah. So, but like the numbers just like didn't make sense, like it in a good way, because it's like, okay, so the property will pay for itself in 6 years. I'm buying it for a third of what it would cost new to build. It's unsustainable to stay this way.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. So I felt so assured. Everything that I bought, I felt assured. I've been so confident that I'm getting a deal on it. There's upside on it. I'm not going to lose money. I've not seen that the last 2 years.
Okay.
So I've not bought anything.
Right.
So for me, real estate's something where for me, I just have to be so sure that it's a slam dunk deal. I'm sure they exist, but I also don't have the time to
They're more
dedicate.
likely to happen in a recession.
Yeah, way more likely. So so if you see a good deal, I think whether it's a good market or a bad market, and the numbers make sense and there's upside on it, it doesn't matter, but you'll find more of them.
Yeah, the opportunity. And again, the whole goal of this is real estate is to not gamble. You've got to do the work. And that's what I see everything you've talked about is you do the work, you go deep, and then you can, what an average is or what good is, and then you can go do great deals. And I think you'll have that opportunity in the next recession. I think I heard somewhere the next thing you're looking at is a commercial building.
I'd like to, but again, I'm not seeing any.
Right.
Oh, sorry, I thought I heard something. Okay. Let me say it again. But again, I'm not seeing anything, which is odd. And that's something where I'm not like an expert at commercial real estate, and so I have a lot of self-doubt on.
Now this would be for self-use?
No.
Oh, okay.
Just to rent out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Commercial versus residential. Okay.
Yeah. I just think the workload on something like that, I'd rather something a little more hands off with like
do a triple net. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a really odd time because borrowing rates are really high, and a lot of the properties are cap rating below what you would pay in interest. Yeah. So if the property makes 6%, but a loan is 7%, you got to put so much money down just for it to break even.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, where's the upside? Why would I choose that over a treasury that you could lock in at less with no risk whatsoever and more liquidity than that? And I think, well, what about the tax benefits? And I've gone so deep on some of these properties trying to
make them work.
Yeah, trying to make it work. I don't see it. But I worry I'm wrong because if interest rates come back down, now could be the time to buy.
Right.
Because interest rates are high, mortgage rates are high, maybe there's fewer sellers. So maybe now is the time. It's like short-term pain. But if they lower interest rates substantially this year, then all of a sudden, those properties are going to be worth more. So I could be wrong. And so I worry about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I've yet to see a deal where it's like,
done.
I want it. There's one that I made one offer on, but they had two other offers at the same time. And it went way over asking. And I knew it. But
even on commercial properties.
But even that was the deal for me. I was like, makes sense.
Okay.
But two other people
saw it as well.
Makes sense, and I'm going to pay more.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. I'm going to pay more.
Yeah.
So where do you go next? Where does Graham go next? You're obviously still near as I can tell, still having a blast with YouTube. You're still finding ways to grow. You have Iced Coffee Hour with just about 1 million subs now.
Yeah, probably the podcast. Honestly, this has been the real joy of mine. I'm kind of burnt out of I've been burnt out of the main channel for 3 years. Every year since 2019, I said I was going to stop doing YouTube, and then COVID happened. And I doubled down.
Actually.
Yeah, and I doubled down. 2021, I was like, let me just get through my birthday. Got through my birthday, and I was like, let me just get through the end of the year because I may as well make it an even thing. And here I am. I've been burnt out from that for a long time. And I think, unfortunately, it tends to show in the content that you put out there. And I'm doing my best because I want to keep a schedule.
Sure.
But like the podcast is something where I love it. I love every bit about it. So I'll probably keep posting on the main channel for the foreseeable future.
Right.
But the podcast for me is like, this is where most of my passion is.
Okay. And it's the guests and the stories, and you get to select, and it's just it's 90 minutes, one shoot, you're done.
No, even our episodes now are like mostly 3 hours.
Oh,
each.
3 hours.
Yeah, that's why I went later than expected.
Nice.
Yeah. It's good. It's challenging in a different way where you, instead of it being like mentally grueling to plan something out that you don't want to talk about, a lot of it is like on the guest.
Sure.
So we have a wide guest selection where we could talk about the subjects we're interested in, and it's like us directing our own episodes, and we could ask the questions that we know we're interested in, or the audience is interested in, or we know can, get a good clip or be of interest, help bring in a new audience. There's so much wiggle room there. It's just, and I think that's the future of content. I think is to go really long form with little clips.
Long form, little clips. Long form being greater than 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Ideally, for podcasts, you want it to be an hour and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, because YouTube really likes the watch time.
Right.
2 hours, amazing. 3 hours for us, anything over 3 hours, it's going to be, we're not going to include 3 hours of nothing. Like, if it's 3 hours or more, it's worth listening to, because, we wouldn't include stuff we didn't think was important.
Okay. All right. So, how do we help kind of the young Grahams of the world, right? Let's say that you graduated high school, you're not going to college.
Mm-hmm.
It's, recession has started. Again, is it the same story? Find your passion. Go.
I think so.
Go
yeah,
deep,
I think the options are so limitless right now. The big thing would be just to start doing something that you want to do, and don't wait for someone to step in. Like, if I sat around and waited for someone to come and find me and help me, I would never do anything.
Right.
But just the fact of going to open houses and meeting people and putting myself out there. I didn't expect anything to. I just thought people would give me good advice and that it would help me. But I just put myself in a situation where everything kind of flowed together. Same when I wanted to get into investments, and I just cold emailed a company and just asked, I'll do anything. I'll work for free.
Right.
Let me know if there's anything I could do for you.
Right.
And that worked. Or the reef aquarium thing. It's like I'm just interested in that. It's just everything I've done has really happened organically. And it was never something where I forced it or waited for something to happen. I was just, I'm going to do it regardless. And I'm just going to hope that good things are going to happen in the process.
Wow. So we started this story talking about mom and dad.
Yeah.
What do mom and dad say now?
I think they're pretty proud.
Okay.
Yeah, I know initially they were both. My dad probably less so of me not going to college. I think it'd be interesting to ask them their opinion. I think initially they were both kind of worried. Definitely.
Did they both go to
parents,
college?
They did.
They did. Okay.
And I believe both of them were the first in their family to go to college, so it was important to them that I also go to college.
Got it.
So for them, it was a big achievement of like, hey, we went out there, we got a college degree.
Yeah.
So for me, not doing that was a bit of a shocker. Mostly friends' parents.
Yeah.
That was the big one in high school. Because they were all talking about, where are you going to college? I'm like, I'm not going to college. I don't want it. And they gave me looks. It's just like, no, you're going to go to college. Like, that's going to be a mistake.
So you actually took the SATs. I think you said you bombed it earlier.
Bombed it.
Yeah, I didn't even bother taking the SATs. Yeah. So I went to a junior college.
Okay.
I had to pay for it myself.
Yeah, that would have been smart. Yeah, I think I got like a 1030 or so. It was low. Like the SAT, I think goes up to, I don't know.
No, 16 something, I think.
I think
80 math and 800 English or
something like that. I know I was like low 1,000 on that. Could have been lower. I don't remember. I just remember it not being good.
Not good enough for Pepperdine.
But I never studied for it. So that's my defense. I never studied. I just showed up and thought that I could just ace this thing because I just thought it was, how hard could it be?
Yeah. So what do we talk? I don't know if you're comfortable answering this, but we're going to ask it anyway. What do you tell the 40 or 50-year-olds heading into a recession? They already have commitments. They got a couple of kids, maybe full-time employee, got some debt. Any advice for them?
It's tough because sometimes I feel like I might think differently when I'm like 40 or 50, and maybe I have a different perspective. I don't know. I would like to think that the basics still apply. Of during a recession, it's probably make sure you keep a consistent income. That's probably number one. Make yourself as indispensable as possible in your job.
I like it.
If you could find, I know it's easy, side hustles or something that you could do on the side for extra income. I'm sure that couldn't hurt.
Right.
But at the end of it, if it's a money thing, it's just a math problem of more going in than coming out. If you have an expensive car, that might be worth looking into getting rid of the car. If you're living somewhere expensive, you can't afford it, moving further out or moving to something smaller if it's possible. Cutting back, canceling subscriptions is a big one if there's something you're not using. Shopping around insurance is a big one. I did that recently and I saved like $3-4 grand.
Nice.
Just I bundled everything together and I ended up saving a ton of money. Then because I had like 3 or 4 different insurance companies and I just never cared. I just like, oh yeah, I need to insure this. This company's the cheapest for this one thing, but bundling together. So that was $4 grand I saved. So I bet there's a lot of things where if you take the time, shop around health insurance, if you pay for it yourself, car insurance, home insurance, subscriptions, you probably will save a few $100s a month on that.
Yeah. So when you look, do you feel like, do you look at the economy and say, hey, we got a recession coming? Do you look at the economics or you just operate?
I look at all the data and then I say what the data says. But data is often conflicting. Like you'll have so many people say, no, it's for sure. We have 100% chance of recession this year, but no recession. Yeah. And then so what I like to do is I look at the data and I say, they say this. Statistically, they have this track record of being wrong or right.
Right.
Based on all past history, a recession has always occurred when these things happen, and these things have happened. Doesn't mean it's always going to be that, but it gives us a high likelihood that we could enter a recession or something like that. So I try not to inject too much of like, here's what I believe is going to happen. I just rely on the facts. Like here's the pro and con. Come to your decision. I tend to lean a little more this way, but the other side also makes a lot of sense. So come to your own conclusion.
Do you have a favorite YouTube channel that you follow? Maybe not business, maybe aquarium stuff. Do you have people that you follow today we can give a shout out to?
Oh gosh. Who do I watch consistently? I watch pretty much all of Philip DeFranco's videos, I gotta say.
Okay.
I get a lot of news from him. Who else, dude? I honestly, I just have there's so many.
Okay.
I probably subscribe to like 200 different people at this point. It's so perfectly curated. I listen to so many people.
Yeah. At the end of the day, would you call yourself an optimist or a pessimist?
I like to think I'm an optimist mostly. Like I really believe in myself. I wouldn't say I'm a pessimist. I'm cautious.
Okay.
I'd say I'm optimistically cautious. So I'm very superstitious. I'm afraid of jinxing things. I don't like to talk about something before it's actually happened. Yeah. I'm afraid if I tell someone about something I'm doing before I actually go and do it, it's not going to happen.
It blows up, yeah.
So I keep a lot to myself before I actually go and do something, and I'll never talk about it.
Yeah. Well, Graham, this has been a lot of fun for me. Again, I remember watching you in 2018 in the back of a van in Taiwan where the family was talking Mandarin, and I had no idea what was going on. Yeah. So it's been a 6-year journey to get here. Yeah. I just thank you for the opportunity. Again, if they don't know where to find you, where should they go?
Check out the Iced Coffee Hour.
Let's get them to 1 million subs.
Yeah, we're almost at 1 million, so that would be amazing to do that. Or Graham Stephan on YouTube if you prefer that. But I'd recommend the podcast.
Iced Coffee Hour. It's a lot of fun. Thank you for doing this, man.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Graham.